Thank you very much, Surendran sir. I'm proud, honored, and humbled to accept this award in the name of Chinta Ravi. I did not know him personally, but I can see that several people I have known for decades knew him so well and were so close to him. It never ceases to amaze me that with all the rubbish we've produced in the media in the last 30 years, 35 years, this country still produces journalists like this. It still produces a Chinta Ravi. And that's really heartening and amazing, an idea of hope. You know? Somehow they seem to spring up, aided and abetted by nobody, but just develop into something extraordinary like this, as I thought Shashi correctly described him, a polymath. I thank the organizers, and I'm thanking all of you for showing up here in this rain and filling this, hall. I'm going to take, I would like to say that it's also special to be getting this kind of an award uh, and this kind of recognition because journalists like Akar, myself, and others have been getting a lot of recognition in the last few years of a very different kind. Yeah. So that kind of recognition is relentless and round the year, and this comes as a big relief. And I'm going to grab this opportunity to take 5 minutes to tell you something about the kind of recognition I got involved in the last 2 years, uh, which I think is fairly unique, and give you some idea of what's happening to freedom of expression, journalists, etc. in this country. In 2020, the India's rank in the World Press Freedom Index, organized by Reporters Sans Frontières, the Reporters Without Borders in Paris, India's rank fell to 142. India's rank was never very high, but there was a time when actually it was 94. But it fell dramatically even in the UPA years, and then there is nothing that anyone does that Mr. Modi cannot improve on. So we fell to 142 in 2020, and the government of India was very upset. It had to rebut this conspiracy and expose all these Western guys. So a commission or committee was formed at the behest of the senior most bureaucrat in the country, that is Union Cabinet Secretary, a bureaucrat, I think Madhavan sir will correct me if I'm wrong, who takes his orders only from one person. Of course, in present day India, from 1.5 persons. And I don't know which is the half and which is the one. But the Union Cabinet Secretary gave a fatwa to the Information and Broadcasting. All this is published. It's published in the documents. It's available to you, the letter, saying that we must reply and rebut this Reporters Without Borders report. It is obviously methodologically whatever. So we need an answer to this, and we advise the formation of a high-powered committee to study the methodology of what happened and rebut it, etc. So the INB ministry formed a high-powered committee to look at the state of press freedom and whether we merited a ranking of 142. They found themselves with a committee of 13 bureaucrats looking at press freedom. Somebody then, some wiser counsel in the bureaucracy, and maybe a slightly mischievous one, told them that committee on press freedom, it might be a good idea to include a couple of journalists. They also have something to do with press and freedom. So they got 2 journalists. one, a TV anchor of famous fame, yeah, who set a record, who set an absolute record in the committee meetings. Because have you ever heard, Shashi, of a television anchor remaining silent for 4 minutes? This one remained silent for 4 hours. He never spoke. At the end of the second meeting, he said his duties were too onerous. I actually kept watching him, looking. I mean, he did come on camera, on video, he spoke. I was just waiting for him to say something. When he did, it was that, my duties are too onerous and I must step down. So he stepped down. The full committee then they replaced him with two unknown journalists, never heard of before or since. I suppose with an exit of a heavyweight, they needed two middleweights or featherweights to compensate and to balance me. So I made it conditional that I would be part of your committee. I would not be part of it if its objective was solely to rebut what reporters asked the World Press Freedom Index ranking. I said because my ranking would be lower than that. So please don't get me involved in rebuttals. If you are doing a survey, if you are doing a methodological exercise and creating an index for India, if you are looking at what is press freedom in India as experienced by Indian journalists, then I am on your committee. They immediately agreed. And this pattern of cooperative interaction extended through the committee's brief life. When I said this, and when I said many other things, the chairman of the committee, who is the director general of PIB and everything else, when I said I've been there on this condition, immediately he would say, "This is a very important point Mr. Sainath is making. It should be recorded." Now, he's a veteran bureaucrat, and I've had some experience of government commissions. We both knew the steps. We both had done the dance before. And anything I said and I was the only person who spoke because the rest were bureaucrats who were taking notes. And there were many subgroups and subcommittees on which there was no journalist, but we learned some fantastic things. You know how many laws there are affecting media in this country? 58. 58 laws affecting media and press in this country, going back to the Telegraph Act. Yeah. Then Mr. Modi, meanwhile, makes speeches about, we should throw out all these colonial laws. And then no government has used those colonial laws more than his. And he brings amendments to these laws to make them more stringent, like the Epidemic and Diseases Act, under which your neighboring Tamil Nadu, Samuel Raja Pandian of the portal Simplicity, was arrested under the Epidemic and Diseases Act for a story that the Coimbatore General Hospital was lacking PPE for doctors and nurses. Obviously, the story came from the doctors and nurses. And then two of them had to go underground, his colleagues, to be able to escape arrest. The last time a journalist was arrested under Epidemic and Diseases Act was in the 1890s, and his name was Balagangadhar Tilak. Okay? So this is what was happening. Anyway, in the committee, I kept raising the issue. I raised the issue of internet stoppages in Kashmir. And of course, the chairman said, important point. I suggested that if we are going to look at these issues, let us have hearings of the journalists of Kashmir. Let them come to the committee. This is the correct way of going about it. And nobody said no. Everybody said, yeah, this is, 10 people were silent and others were saying, yes, important. We must look at it. Then I put all sorts of stuff. I was the only guy speaking in the 4 full meetings of the full committee. Then suddenly, December 2020, we got a report a draft report. The draft report of 45 pages was remarkable for the total absence of the word draft. It was obviously made as a final report, and it was going to get past me because the first paragraph on the first page is full of effusive gratitude and thanks to me for my wonderful time which I gave and my great inputs. Now, not a word I said appeared in the report except where the chairman agreed on decriminalization of defamation. Okay, on the defamation law, we should not make it a criminal law. Anyway, here is a fantastic thing. A 45-page report on press freedom did not once have the word censorship, dissident. It did not once say anything about anything to. How can you have a report on press freedom without the word censorship coming somewhere? It had one word, censorship, in quoting Wilbur Schramm on some theory. Otherwise, it did not. I listed 25 words vital to a debate on press freedom, none of which appeared even once in the 45 pages. So I wrote an independent note. At that stage, I was still seeing if I could maneuver like in other commissions to get it accepted. So I didn't make it a dissent note, I wrote independent note. And I pointed out that, you know what the kind of things this report said? The security forces are playing a heroic role in Kashmir in defending the freedom and security of journalists in the state from foreign terrorists, etc., etc. Now, obviously, this was not acceptable. Anyway, so I wrote this detailed note, sent it in. No reply. I sent it 3 times. Then I got one small line from some junior person in PIB saying, "Sir, I was on tour. We will look at your note and it will be added to the draft and we should." Then it disappeared. Now here's the wonderful thing that I am associated with. Guess what happened? The entire committee, high-powered committee set up by the behest of the Union Cabinet Secretary, the entire committee disappeared. The report disappeared. 3 more emails, the email ID disappeared. Now, the media, of course, are hostile, but even my own friends are pretty unsympathetic. My old JNU gang and contemporaries. When I went about bitterly complaining, I was told, "Be grateful, you idiot. They disappeared the report, not the reporter." Yeah, so I suppose there's an element of truth in that. But yeah, so this is what happened. Then the country's leading RTI journalist files RTIs, our Indian Express Rambal. He files 2 RTIs asking 9 questions about did such a committee exist? If so, how many meetings did it have? What day? And then 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The RTI replied, confirmed his first 2 questions. Yes, committee exists set up under chairman, blah, blah, blah. And meetings of the full committee and subcommittees had more meetings. Yeah. Questions 3 to 9, not our department. Not within our purview. So this is how an RTI on press freedom was replied to. The whole damn thing disappeared. It just disappeared. From 2020 to now, nothing further has been said. But I noticed that the newspapers are now citing that as a report, which is not true. It was not signed off on by me and let alone by anyone else. No one else signed off on the report. So how do you cite this as a Government of India report on? It was not signed. But I'm finding that people are citing from the report. Please read the damn thing. It's insane. What we also saw and we also put together for that report was about 100 FIRs filed against journalists. Okay, 100. Some absolutely incredible ones like the other Zubair Ahmed in Andaman Islands, who took his own life last year. Zubair Ahmed was arrested for a tweet pointing out that the family of a COVID victim who had been quarantined, they spoke to him on the phone and the whole family was quarantined. Believe it or not, the whole family was quarantined. Now, this story also appeared in the Andaman Chronicle. Yeah. And Zubair Ahmed said, what's the, is this disease catching on phone or what? And he was arrested the next day under the aegis of that great Andaman's administrator who has been arrested on terrible, all sorts of obnoxious charges. Yeah. Zubair went into a depression. He had a problem and last year took his life. Now, this is the state. It is the state of press freedom where a report on press freedom disappears. In that situation where people give themselves wonderful awards from governments and everything else, I am really honored, happy, delighted, and I want to say this on not just on my own behalf, but that of the People's Archive of Rural India. I am so glad it's included in this citation and prize, because really we exist and we publish in 15 languages every day. Some of those who translate for us are in this audience. And 15 languages we publish every day, including Malayalam. And I request you to look at that site. And once again, I'm really honored to receive this recognition and award. Thank you.